What's going on, everyone? Talen here, and welcome to another account progression video. Alright, so it is finally time to get X-23 to Tier 2. Took quite a long time to get her gears to level 20 here. Getting all of her biometrics from the processor was a very slow process, but we eventually got there. It did take a long time, like I said. I got quite unlucky on just two of the gears, I would say. The other two seemed to cooperate quite well, so it definitely could have taken longer, but overall, it still was a grind. But anyway, now that we have her ready to Tier 2, let's go ahead and take a look at her before we do that. So for her skills, you don't really need to level up any of these. I leveled these two up just to see if the bleed damage would change. And if I remember correctly, it started at 30%, so I don't think the bleed damage changed. But correct me if I'm wrong, because it was a very long time before I leveled up these skills. So I don't really remember if they were at 30 or not when I started leveling them up. But anyway, if they are at 30 at level 1, then you don't need to level these up. If they are less than 30, then it's probably okay to level them up. For our ISO 8 set, we have Power the Angry Hulk, so definitely go with an attack-based set on her, because you want to get that attack speed and ignore defense. Is really nice with Power the Angry Hulk, and also just to synergize with her flat-out just attack style. But something to note is she's actually a character that would benefit from Hawk's Eye, surprisingly. So not a lot of characters I recommend Hawk's Eye for, but it's just because she has very, very low native skill cooldown. So you need a lot of skill cooldown to get her to the cap. I have a lot of skill cooldown on my cards, probably more than the average person, and I'm still just a little bit below cap for her. We're at 48.4%, so it could be a little bit higher. I could just roll the last slot on her gear here to skill cooldown, and that would solve the problem. But then again, I'm not at the cap for ignore defense either, so either way I'm going to have to put some Uru on her if I want to cap either of those two stats. But it's just something to keep in mind, because she has no skill cooldown, as you can see, as any of these stats on her gear, so that's why her skill cooldown is quite low natively, so you do have to augment that a little bit. For her custom gear, I have a immune to guard break and a damage proc. I just kind of threw this on her just to test her out a little bit. She doesn't necessarily need the immune to guard break, especially for PvE content if you're going to be manually controlling her, but for PvP, the immune to guard break does come in handy, so it is something to take note that the immune to guard break will make quite a difference for her, because she does get canceled out of some of her skills on startup. But besides that, you don't need to go with immune to guard break because of the iframes that she has. I do like having a damage proc on her. She already has pretty nice damage as is, so the damage proc will just kind of augment that a little bit. Again, if you're going with PvP and you want to make her really tough to deal with, you could go with invincibility, because she does have the heal with her passive, which is a little bit weaker than Wolverine's. I think it's a little bit weaker. It might be the same, 5%. So it is still a very nice heal, so she is going to be very tanky because of the healing, but since she is a speed character, overall she is a little squishier, so this just kind of makes her more of a average survivability in terms of like a tanky character. But let's see, is that everything we need to go over right now? I think so. I think it is time to get her to Tier 2, which I've been waiting to do this for a while now. Alright, so X-23, it's finally time for you to get the Tier 2 treatment. There we are. Haha, alright. So we have the all-new Wolverine. So her Tier 2 is increased skill damage by 12% and bonus damage by 10%. So quite small boost in damage right there in terms of the percentages. So that's quite low compared to other Tier 2s. But she gets some crit damage increase by 35%, which is really nice. And then she gets some guaranteed crit rate by 35%. So those two stats right there are really nice, and they're going to help boost her damage quite a bit. So overall, her Tier 2 is only damage based. There's not really anything to help her with her survivability there, but it is a good Tier 2 nonetheless. So now we have the all-new Wolverine. Alright, so now that we have her Tier 2, the only thing that's left to do is to try her out a little bit. So let's go ahead and do that. Alright, so here we are at Infinity Thanos. This will be a nice place to try her out. So we're going to go ahead and use this team here. We have Beast for the leadership, 45% increase to physical attack. Then we have Wolverine, of course, because we want to have him in here for the team up. So we have the Beasts of the X-Men with all attack and all defense. So nice team up there with Beast. And then we have the Howlett family. So all attack and max HP between Laura and Wolverine there. So we're going to go ahead and just jump in here right away. We're not going to use any strikers, of course, since she is tier 2. She shouldn't need any help, especially in damage, because we do have a damage proc on her, so she'll be fine here. Alright, so maybe we'll pass over the buff to her just to see what that does. Alright, let's hop in here. So generally what I like to do with her is I will use the 5th skill as like my opening skill, and then I use the 2nd skill because it's quite quick. It doesn't have an iframe, but then you hop right into the 4th skill that does have an iframe, and then you have the 3rd skill that has an iframe, and then I go back to the 2nd skill, and then finally back to the 5th skill to complete my rotation. Alright, he's going into his meteor drop. Go ahead and swap out here. Even though I don't think we need to. We probably could have just tanked those meteors and healed it back from her passive to see how good her healing was. Let's go ahead and switch out here. Alright, he's going into the final phase here. And so far so good, haven't had much difficulty at all. Alright, so there we go. So as you can see, playing on manual with her, even if you don't have immune to guard break because of her multiple iframes, it's really easy to just chain her skills together, and you should not get guard broken if you use the skills quick enough. So if you're just ready to tap the next skill in rotation, you should be fine. But besides that, if you wanted to have her geared more towards PvP, then of course immune to guard break will definitely help, because she does have 2 skills that do not have a iframe on them, so those will probably be the skills that the AI is going to use. Or I've found that a lot of times when I'm using characters in like Conquest or something like that, they always use the skills that I don't want them to use, so most likely you want immune to guard break for PvP content, and then also the invulnerability would be really nice as well, because then she can have the invincibility and heal up from that from her passive. So having some recovery rate, of course, on her obelisk as well would be really nice for X-23 here. I'm actually thinking that I might switch her obelisk out, because I do have a recovery rate with max HP and a damage proc, so I'm going to get rid of my immune to guard break and then have that recovery and max HP on her instead with the damage proc, and I think that'll make her a lot more difficult to deal with, because then she kind of gets some of both worlds. She's going to have really nice recovery with the new HP cap, and then also from the recovery rate, so she'll be healing for quite a bit, and then she'll also be able to dish out a ton of damage with the damage proc. But anyway, that's just my thoughts here on Laura. Overall, a very, very strong character, and worth the time and effort it takes to get her biometrics from the processor, especially since there's not too many X-Men in the pool as of right now, so your chances are quite good of getting her biometrics. So that's probably what helped me to get her to 20s, I'd say relatively quickly, but it did take a very long time still. But anyway, like I said, that's going to be it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and of course I will catch you in the next one.